I encourage everybody to use our government center for that.
Oh,
There it is.
Those doors.
Tim, are you growing that beard back?
It's pretty short. The hair's long though. The hair's really
Okay.
long. All right.
We're going into
Being 8:30, I'm
going
going to go
into
ahead and
summer.
kick off this April 15th, 2021 meeting of the Sherburne County Economic Development Authority. Our first order of business is approval of the April 15th agenda. If there's no changes, I'd entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
Motion from Mr. Giroux. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Jared Johnson. All right, and Rayanne is online, so we do have to do roll call. So all in favor, Rayanne?
Aye.
And we have Laura, Andy, Jared, Ken. Tim Dolan votes aye as well. Agenda passes. Move on to approval of the March 18th County EDA meeting minutes. Those were a part of your packet.
Move that closer.
Closer?
Yeah. Doesn't pick up super well.
How is this?
Way good.
Now they can probably hear you better.
All right. All right, so approval of the meeting minutes from the March 18th meeting. If there's no changes, I'd entertain a motion there as well.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Mr. Giroux. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Jared Johnson. All right, all in favor, Rayanne?
Aye.
Laura? Andy? Ken? And Jared?
Aye.
Tim Dolan votes aye as well. We have those two items out of the way. Next agenda item is Brian Myers, who's the board chair for the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. And I think Dan will be introducing him and he'll be giving a little presentation.
Yeah, welcome, Brian. I know you wear a number of hats. You're not only a Sherburne County resident, you're also the board chair for the GSDC, and I understand you'll be the chair of the Regional Airport Authority as well. So I thought you could give us a report on some of those activities that those organizations are going through into 2021. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. I think what would probably work best, Dan, is what we just recently had our annual meeting at the GSDC. And so I think we're gonna show the annual meeting video because I think that really lays out in a couple minutes what we've been up to, and then we'll get a little bit deeper after that. I do apologize for not being there in person. I intended to be there, but I have to be in Alexandria at 10 o'clock, so it didn't work out to be in two places at the same time. So, Dan, do you want to roll a video?
Yeah, Chrissy, you got that? And Tim, you see Molly's online now.
Yep, I see you, Molly.
Hello, my name is Amelia Barkley, and I am the Communications and Program Specialist at the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. I wanted to take this opportunity to finally introduce myself since I started in April of 2020. Some of you may recognize me as I interned with the GSDC during the summer of 2019 after I graduated from the College of St. Benedict with a degree in Economics and Hispanic Studies. After my internship, I lived in central Mexico and served with an organization focused.
We're meeting employees nonetheless.
Amelia is wonderful, so she's really doing a great job. But it's the annual meeting video is the one we want to watch.
Can you, Brian, go ahead and give a little update, and Chrissy and I'll cue up the right video.
Okay, so as I believe you know, our four strategic imperatives are to engage leaders, grow business, develop talent, and shape tomorrow. So that's basically what we focus on. Most recently, one of the things that we're going to be doing a roundtable on is the whole workforce availability issue. One of the things that we're noting with employers across the region and actually across the country is lack of workforce, and a lot of it appears to be related to the rich unemployment benefits that are in the system right now. We've got employers that are paying $15 an hour plus full benefits and can't get anybody to apply. So it's particularly onerous on the entry-level side. So we're going to be convening a roundtable, and we're going to try and get local state and federal elected officials at that meeting so we can have a conversation about workforce availability, because it's really going to hold economic development back if people are not incented to work. So that's kind of the biggest hot topic right now. The other hot topic, obviously, is responding to the public safety issues in the metro. Trying to be proactive about that, because we really, with especially the most recent incident, we really don't want to have riots, et cetera, in the St. Cloud region. So we're trying to come up with a affirmative reply or response showing all the work that's being done in diversity, equity, inclusion, and trying to kind of head that off if possible. The other thing, we also know that a lot of the issues stem around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we've been doing a lot of work there to try and become more fluent in the issues around that, and to work on economic equity as it relates to all people of all colors. So that's some of the other work that we're doing. How are we doing on the video?
We're ready to queue it up, Brian.
Okay, have at it.
Sorry about that.
When 2020 began, a lot of businesses had big plans, which quickly changed when COVID-19 hit, including at the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. Our mission did not change, but the way we delivered on it did. While you were understandably focused on the health of both your loved ones and your businesses, you may have missed some of the GSDC's work on your behalf this past year. Our attention immediately shifted to assisting hundreds of devastated area companies. Our fast response strategy of support, rebuilding, and recovery included convening industry sector roundtables and frequent meetings with funding organizations. We kept GSDC investors updated on options and solutions, participating in more than 50 pandemic briefings with DEED, and sharing key information with you via email updates that continue today. We assisted over 200 entrepreneurs and startups in our role as the new Launch Minnesota Hub, and by working closely with the region's G-Beta program as part of our contract with the nationally ranked startup accelerator called Generator. Our ongoing leadership with Young American Leaders cohort activities continued in 2020 as well. Of course, you can't have strong companies without strong talent. During the year, we posted more than 16,000 jobs on our JobSpot website, featuring nearly 1,200 companies. We teamed with Sauk Rapids Rice Public Schools to provide career education and joined several community partners in leading epic activities for 3,300 high school students. We collaborated with the St. Cloud School District and others to create the Career Pathways program to further align education with jobs students will seek upon graduation. To support kids and families during distance learning, we teamed with the United Way to launch Around Cloud Tutors, a free online tutoring program. We also launched stcloudshines.com to highlight our community's many advantages to employees, entrepreneurs, young families, and others. Packed with information about nightlife, diversity, housing, and more, the site expands on our popular St. Cloud Shines social media campaign. Other key GSDC initiatives in 2020 included furthering our efforts to encourage STEM careers, addressing childcare challenges, and taking new steps to close the racial disparities gap, which includes development and implementation on a diversity, equity, and inclusion roadmap. We are also advocating for the revitalization of downtown St. Cloud and full build-out of broadband infrastructure. Another area of our longtime advocacy was realized in 2020 with the City of St. Cloud and the counties of Benton, Stearns, and Sherburne approving a joint resolution to create an airport authority. The transition is now underway. The GSDC did not allow the pandemic to undermine our vital job creation efforts, not at all. We helped the region add over 450 new jobs in 2020, plus 130 more to soon be added at Pilgrims. The $75 million Pilgrims expansion came to fruition when the GSDC brought together representatives from the state, Stearns County, the city of Cold Spring, and XL Energy. All told, we supplied information to 14 companies considering relocation to Greater St. Cloud, which included leading a tour with a national development company that is exploring expansion here. Throughout the year, Our talented GSDC staff collaborated with investors, partners, and other stakeholders to keep a multitude of projects moving forward. Despite often working from home and dealing with other roadblocks, they didn't miss a beat in creating opportunities for you and our region. No one knows where 2021 will lead us, but the GSDC will be here to lead on your behalf, always with an eye on our 4 strategic imperatives. Your funding and other support of the GSDC ensure that no matter what challenges are put before our community and our people, we will come out stronger together. Thank you for your partnership.
So any questions about the activities at the GSDC? I do want to thank Sherburne County for your investment in the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. I think, collaboratively, we've been accomplishing a lot. So it is really appreciated, the Sherburne County's involvement. And if you noticed in the video, Marie Flepson was in there, featured in the video. She's one of our young American leaders. So congratulations, Marie.
Any questions for Brian? Hold on, we're starting another movie.
Oh, turn that off.
We're trying.
We got you. Little patience. Anybody have any questions for Brian at all? Brian, I had one, if there's none from anyone else. You mentioned kind of going down the line of workforce solutions and reaching out to our legislative delegation. Does GSDC have any programs built or any track in mind as far as how to address that, or are we just going in with kind of collaborative communications and trying to come up with something?
Well, I think right now, obviously, there's some very specific tracks as it relates to working with the educational institutions, et cetera, as far as skill development. But the real issue that we're concerned about right now is just the whole issue of with the federal add-on to the state unemployment benefit, and we've got evidence that shows that when that went away for a couple months, the job pool jumped dramatically. As soon as it came back, it's very difficult, particularly to get entry-level people. Even when you've got $15 an hour jobs with full benefits, people aren't applying. So we really want to express that both small employers, restaurants, places like that, plus large employers, people like or businesses like PCI, et cetera, are having the same struggles, and we need to do something, because obviously it's going to really hold us back if we can't get labor.
Thanks, I
And
appreciate
Brian,
that. Go ahead, Rayanne.
Mr. Chair, I concur with that. I hear that quite often from employers, how frustrating that is when they have someone hired and just before their start date, when that package got extended, they just, well, I'm not coming now because the unemployment benefits were extended. And they can make more being at home than they would be making being employed. And that's never a good balance.
No. So that's probably one of our bigger challenges right now that we're working on the GSDC. Is there anything else on GSDC before I move to the St. Cloud Regional Air Authority?
Anyone else? You can go ahead and move on, Brian.
Okay, so the St. Cloud Regional Air Authority Board has been formed. Sherburne County is well represented with myself as chair. Jamie Bestian is on the board, as well as Angela Olson. So Angela is the at-large member. The way the board is formed is the city of St. Cloud has 2 seats. Benton, Sherburne, and Stearns each have 2 seats, and then 1 at-large member. So that's the board. Really great group of people. And we've had 2 meetings, and we're just kind of in the organizing stage right now. But activities that we're involved with right now, one thing is to get people educated. So there's 3 of us that will, myself, Angie, and Ryan Daniels will be attending the National Airport Economic Development Conference. It's an inexpensive thing because we're doing it via Zoom. And then we need to develop our business plan And the goal is to get that done this year prior to the actual formation of the authority. There's a lot of FAA approvals necessary, and you create a book about 6 inches thick that has to be approved by the FAA. Our hope is to have that done by year end. In the interim, this board is serving as an advisory board to the city of St. Cloud until the closing. So once the closing happens, that's when we'll actually be an airport authority. There's a number of things we do have to deal with. One are the operating issues involved with staff, et cetera, going from being in one entity to another. So we're going to be working with the county administrators, et cetera, city administrator to resolve those issues, and then form our committee structure. Probably going to have 2 committees, one being finance and operation and the other one planning and growth. That's what the MAC has, and if it works for them, I think it probably would work for St. Cloud. We're also just getting the board up to speed on a number of things, but one of the things that the city of St. Cloud is pushing forward with is a $1 million sewer and water project there that will expand utilities so that we can build more hangars. So that's in the works. We also have a parking issue there, so we're looking at that to determine what's the best path forward there. And then there's also a 2-year or about a 2-year waiting list for T hangars. And so we're in the process of evaluating that and whether that should be a development project we should accelerate. So those are kind of the things at the top of the agenda right now, but the process so far has gone quite smooth. Questions?
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian on the airport? Quick question for you, Brian, from myself.
Yeah.
You mentioned the FAA approval process. Do we have any type of loose timeline on that? I don't expect you to nail it down.
Yeah, the end of the year.
End of the year? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now with COVID, obviously things did get slowed up, but we do feel that by the end of the year, that's the goal, is to have it done by the end of the year.
All right, thanks, Brian. Any other questions before we let Brian go? All right, Brian, thank you. We appreciate it. Safe travels to
Absolutely.
Alec.
Yep, thank you. All the best. Bye.
All right, we will move on to agenda item number 5, which is Matt Verlick and Don Hickman. I see them both online here. And Dan, if you want to introduce them.
Sure. As I mentioned last month, when we had the Greater MSP here. Yeah, I talked about all the partners we work with. So GSDC and Initiative Foundation are 2 other partners that we work very closely with. So I thought I'd invite Matt and Don to talk a little bit about the organization and how we partnered over the years and what the goals look like for 2021. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. I think I'll start off and then hand over to Don. So good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Verlick, and I'm president at the foundation. I was going to joke that when you were looking for the GSDC videos, I was going to hope you'd find the one featuring the amazing board members at GSDC. And that's a joke because I'm a board member at GSDC. But then I realized Dan Weber might demand the same thing of the Initiative Foundation presentation because Dan is a trustee with us. So we won't do any videos for ours. We're just going to give you a little overview. In my case, I think I'll give you an overview of how we operate, kind of a refresher of the resources we offer, talk a little bit about how we pivoted in 2020, as we all pivoted in every organization. And then I'm going to hand it over to Don, who has been doing a lot of intensive work, specifically with Sherburne County and in partnership with Dan and the county, Commissioner Dolan and others around SHRCO. So also wanted to mention, in addition to Trustee Weber, we have a strong Sherburne County influence when it comes to our governance bodies. John Babcock from Bank of Elk River is formerly our board chair and wrapped up somewhat recently. And then David Monroy, who I think many of you know, an attorney in Elk River, is also on our board. Refresher on our basic objective and mission. It is officially to empower people throughout central Minnesota to build 3 things: thriving economy, vibrant communities, and a lasting culture of generosity. So basically what I want to do is unpack that and how we do it with a focus on Sherburne County activities. So when we talk about empowering people throughout central Minnesota, we're talking specifically about 14 counties, including Sherburne. That territory is like Sherburne, Wright, et cetera, on the southern border, east all the way to Wisconsin, north all the way to Crow Wing and Cass, west all the way to the western border of Todd, Stearns, and Wadena. So that's our territory. We're also proud, though, that one thing unique about our organization is that we are part of a network of 6 sister organizations. We all call ourselves Initiative Foundations. And each of those organizations has their own exclusive service territory. And together, we cover all of the 80 counties of greater Minnesota. And because we have that universal coverage, it often means that when the state wants to do something that reaches rural Minnesota, they will work through us as a vehicle. One example of that was in the pandemic with the small business relief grants. And there have been so many different relief resources, it's almost hard to keep track of them. But this one was $10,000 to eligible businesses in a grant. And normally we don't even make grants to businesses, but this was special circumstances. And we just checked the numbers, and we made 53 of those in Sherburne County specifically, $10,000 each. So that was $530,000 to Sherburne County businesses. So that's the network that we are a part of. All 6 of the foundations were established at the same time, roughly, 1986, in the aftermath of, or the latter stages of the farm crisis. And the goal was economic diversification, community vitality. And so it's interesting. It feels in a way like we were born out of crisis and have been preparing and sort of strengthening in preparation for the next crisis. And lo and behold, it hit. And we are pleased to have had an opportunity to make a difference in helping us get through the crisis. So in that mission statement I mentioned, we have 3 objectives: economy, community, generosity. So just briefly, here's what we do in each of those spaces. When it comes to economy, another way that I think we're somewhat out of the ordinary as philanthropic organizations go is that we engage a lot with private sector businesses, partly because we are a lender. We run a small bank at the Initiative Foundation. We're a community development financial institution, which is a U.S. Treasury designation. That's partly where we get some of our capital. And anyway, we do lending of about $3 million per year. We typically do it on a gap basis, so not in competition with banks and credit unions, but rather in partnership with them. So if a bank, like the Bank of Elk River, for example, is going to do a deal, and maybe they're going to provide 75% of the capital, but the owner can't come up with the remaining 25%, we might do that last slice or much of it on a subordinate basis, a riskier basis, but we do it to make the deal happen, and therefore more job creation, more job retention, et cetera. Dan Bullard, some of you might know, is who runs that activity for us, and he is an Elk River resident, so that's good. And I looked at our list of deals in the last year or 18 months or so, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, but Lupulin Brewing in Big Lake, whose product I enjoy, is one of our partners, Orluck Industries as well. And then the other thing, when it comes to the economy space and working with for-profit businesses, we provide not only capital, but also training, technical assistance, et cetera, through a couple of different programs. We have one called Enterprise Academy, which is mainly for sort of underserved entrepreneurs. And secondly, the Initiators Fellowship, which is for what we call social entrepreneurs. That is people building businesses, but businesses that are somehow making a positive difference in the world, but on a financially sustainable basis. And so both of those programs we think are making an impact. So that's economy, lending and training and technical assistance for for-profit entities. Community, we try to do mainly through work with nonprofits and local units of government like cities and school districts, et cetera. Partly we do this work through discretionary grant making. I'll talk later about the fact that we host funds that are kind of like donor-led, but we also have some discretionary funds, which in fact Don Hickman is largely in charge of distributing according to priorities set by our board. And so we are able to make relatively small grants, oftentimes on the order of $5,000 or $10,000, but we do that at a very early stage, kind of a riskier stage, in hopes that if we can support, let's say, a feasibility study for a good activity and it shows promise, that then that feasibility study can be used to shop it around to other bigger funders and get a snowball rolling. And we have some nice examples of that. I looked back at some grants in Sherburne County from the past year or so, and organizations like Faith in Action, Boys and Girls Club of Elk River, Open Doors for Youth, and then some of the local units of government as well. Once again, besides just the money, which is the typical thing that foundations provide, we also try to provide training and assistance to nonprofits. So we run something called Nonprofit Academy, which is also in Don's portfolio, where we will take a cohort of nonprofit leaders who often have a passion for the nature of the nonprofit's work itself, but maybe haven't had all the management training they might like. And so we give them extra help when it comes to governance issues in their boards and recruiting good board members. When it comes to finance and accounting, when it comes to marketing and fundraising, all those things, we try to make it sort of a force multiplier for the nonprofits so that they can do their work better. And so we give them a check in some cases, but also skills to go out and get more checks from others. So that's community. And then the third bucket is generosity. By that, we mean hosting funds on behalf of others. So this is a typical community foundation function. And the most famous one and the oldest one for us when it comes to Sherburne County and really our whole organization is Three Rivers Community Foundation, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. But then other ones that we have from your neck of the woods, Friends of Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge Fund, Josh Richardson Family Fund, Mel and Jeanette Beaudry Fund, Becker Education Foundation, etc. And so what we do there is we host these funds, we hold the dollars for them, we handle all the kind of compliance and a lot of the bureaucratic stuff so that local people really can just focus on raising funds and deciding where the money gets spent. They tell us where they want it spent, and we generally make those grants as long as there are no, compliance issues. So all told, about $2 million in annual grant making. So that's a normal year. That's kind of our normal operations with a few Sherburne County examples. But of course, last year was not normal. Last year was very out of the ordinary. So just to touch on a few of the things that we did there. In fact, very early on, it was the outdoor seating grant fund that we did with you all. It was kind of a test case for some later work we did with other counties on a larger scale. We immediately got involved in helping to deliver the state's small business emergency loan program. That's one that was delivered statewide by 23 different nonprofit lenders, and we were one of them. So we did $1.2 million in those partially forgivable loans. Later came not the loan program, but the Small Business Relief Grant Program. That was $60 million through DEED, 30 million of which all went through Initiative Foundation and our sister organizations. That was the $530,000 that I mentioned to Sherburne County. And then across our 14 counties, it was 7.6 million. So add all that up for 2020. Normally we do about 3 million in grants and about 2 million in, 3 million in loans, 2 million in grants. But last year was more like 14 million. So really our biggest year ever by several orders of magnitude. We're happy to be a conduit for some of those resources. All that we do, I should say, is a product of our donors. Without strong financial supporters, we can't do it. And we are very thankful to Sherburne County and to the municipalities and businesses as well in your territory who do support us. What's great about that is we're able to show our local support to outside funders like the federal government, state government, McKnight Foundation, Bush Foundation, et cetera. They provide us lots of resources such that we can take every single dollar that comes from Sherburne and we can put, last time we calculated this, $5.30 back into the county. So we like to tout that because we feel like it's a great return on investment for those who are generous in giving to us. And we calculated that $5.30 before the 2020, and so we think those numbers will go up for next time. So with that, I want to hand it over to Don, who is going to talk a little bit about SureCo and maybe some opportunities in the future as well.
Great. Thank you, Matt. I can be heard?
Yep, we can hear you.
Very good. Hi, Marie. Thanks very much. And I hope I'm not repeating what you all already know. Much of what I'm about to share, I learned in the last 5 years, and it just fascinates me. Sherburne County is home to the 16th largest coal plant in the United States, far and away the largest one in the upper Midwest. It is also one of the oldest. And a few years ago, I had not seen this coming, but a few years ago, they began to evaluate whether it was cost effective to invest in bringing it up to modern snuff, regulatory compliance, or whether it had outlived its usefulness. And Sherburne County is really blessed with some far-seeing leaders who saw this coming. Particularly its home base of Becker, and I see Marie on this call, but also the city administrator and mayor, as well as, in my experience, Dan Weber, saw the potential impacts of this long before I did. The coal plant itself represents approximately 77% of the local tax base, and up to 15% of the county's tax base. And so if we didn't prepare to diversify the economy to create a vibrant economic system post coal plant, we would drive over an economic cliff. You can't backfill a gap of that size without a lot of planning and preparation. In that respect, I often say Minnesota is blessed, Sherburne County is blessed to have Xcel Energy as our energy provider. I have peers across the country, and it's not uncommon to have a year or down to a month advance notice of a mothball of this nature. And instead, we've had closer to 7 or 8 years, even longer, before the last unit is likely to be shut down. What does economic diversification look like? In so many respects, that is what your local leadership has been investing in. And I once had a dean at St. Cloud State say to me, "Gosh, you guys are complex, but I think I finally figured out what you do. You're venture capitalists for great ideas." And I love that expression. And I would argue that that's what we have done in partnership with City of Becker and County of Sherburne. When you have early stage ideas or need early investment to figure out, is an idea feasible? Does it make sense? Is it supported by the local community? We're there to give you that first money and hope that it leads to additional resources. In the last 2 years, meaning 2019, 2020, we awarded about $116,000 to Sherco-related projects. I think that's close to 200 if we take it back 3 years. Things like feasibility for extending the rail to support other industries besides just the coal plant. Things like transportation analysis and rerouting of some of the roads in the industrial park adjacent to the coal plant so that we can attract and support additional businesses and investment. And Marie or Dan, please correct me if I'm off target here. I think that $200,000, $300,000 has resulted in approximately $26 million in state bonding to help you advance infrastructure investments on that site. I continue to believe that the attraction of Northern Metals Recycling is a major achievement, and there's just the first of many milestones we will celebrate as we diversify and grow that industrial park. We all have our fingers crossed for a major data center. I know that that's not an official announcement, but I'm absolutely an optimist, and we will continue to be at your side for a while. This last year, as everyone who speaks has already acknowledged, it was not the year anyone planned for, but Commissioner Dolan and Dan Weber have come to me to explore investment in an online resource that would allow greater citizen participation in public processes, the ability to stream county, city, and township events. And we're very interested in trying to help with that. On one level, I don't know that I want to go too much deeper on the Sherco transition, other than it does fascinate us. I want to almost riff off of Brian Meyer's talk going back to GSDC. As long as 15 years ago, we were on an arc in which central Minnesota was leading the state of greater Minnesota in job creation, but not leading in population growth. And that inevitably leads to a shortage of skilled workforce. And so this has been one of our top grant priorities for a long time. A parallel trend is we also lead greater Minnesota in a shortage of childcare. And there's no one that's been hurt more by the pandemic than women. And one of the factors that will inhibit their return to the workforce is access to quality, affordable, economically sustainable childcare. And that's probably been my single greatest priority in the last year. We've received generous support from the state and quite frankly are hoping for even more spectacular return in the coming months as the legislature completes their budgeting. One of our processes is to try and engage the private sector. Many businesses have recognized that if they could partner in offering economically sustainable quality child care, it's a great talent attraction and retention strategy. We have many businesses, both in St. Cloud and smaller communities, that have offered free space, for example, which would significantly improve the business plan for a child care provider. Wages have been pretty low in that sector. And one of our newest initiatives is a partnership with both Pine Tech and Community College and St. Cloud Tech and Community College, in which up to 25 students will be fully scholarshiped to gain their baseline credential, their entry-level credential as a child development associate. And as they graduate from that program, offered night and weekends in English, Spanish, and soon Somali, so that even if you are working, you can continue to gain that credential. As they achieve that, anyone who hires them gets points in the Child Care Aware rating system. That brings the provider scholarships for low-income families. In other words, the entry-level workers that Brian described are having a hard time coming back into the workforce. So if we can get them subsidized child care, that's more likely to lead them to re-engage, which is in everyone's interest. I have robust programs going throughout our region. I don't currently have one working on childcare in Sherburne County. So this is an open solicitation that if any of your communities or work sheds are interested in working on that, I'd love to talk to you, because I do expect to expand the program again here in July. Matt has mentioned the Three Rivers Community Foundation and some of our other partners. Collectively this last year, not counting grants to child care providers or businesses, this is a 2-year figure, we made about $350,000 worth of grants in Sherburne County. Matt mentioned that the business grants alone this past year was $530,000, and I believe we made about $50,000 directly to providers that had been temporarily shut down or otherwise impacted by the pandemic. Matt mentioned the hospitality grant, and I give great credit to Sherburne County. You were literally the first program we knew of to respond to the shutdown orders. That program supported about $11,000 in reimbursement to bars and restaurants that needed to add outdoor seating or awnings or furniture, other investments to comply with the early regulatory stages. And as Matt said, that showed us the way to administer similar grants that leveraged more than $1 million in other counties in our region. I think I'll pause there. As was shared, I get to coordinate our grant review team. We will award approximately $250,000 in discretionary grants and $100,000 in economic development grants. We do this on a quarterly basis, and the deadline is less than a month away. So if someone has a good idea that needs that early stage investment, this is a great time to start a conversation, either in this meeting or offline. My experience is the more often we talk and coach one another so that I understand your needs and you understand what I can do, the higher the quality of grants we can deliver. And often, I will confess, I have to say I'm not the one who can find the resources, but I know someone else who can. And one of the joys of working in this field is it's fairly small, and I'm more than happy to hand you off to a different funder if they're a better fit for your most urgent need. Back to you, Dan.
Don, you forgot to mention the regional planning grant you guys also supplied for Sherburne County for the Central Mississippi River Planning Partnership. You were a big funder in that startup as well.
Thank you. I lumped that into Sherco. We did justify that as necessary investment and planning to support the economic transition. But yes, we're really proud of that. Again, I can't think of another county in our region that has such far-seeing local leadership, that you are preparing for what's coming. None of us saw the pandemic coming, but as we come out of that, I think you're better positioned for economic growth and development than just about anybody. But thank you for the
I
credit.
think Don was just afraid to try and say the name of that group. All right, thanks, Matt and Don. Any questions for Matt or Don from anyone? Doesn't look like it. I just want to express my appreciation to you guys. You've obviously been a phenomenal partner through a lot of different projects, and we definitely appreciate the return on investment, but just the moral support as we navigate some of these things, and having someone to bounce ideas off of is a huge asset to us. So thank you for that.
Tim, this is Molly.
Oh.
I just sent Don. I sent you a chat with my email. Yeah, we know childcare is a huge issue, especially infant childcare. So we can talk offline. But I work for the Elk River Y, but we're part of the Y of the North, and we're the largest providers of childcare in the state of Minnesota. So I would love to have a conversation.
I will follow up with you, Molly, and I've got a lot of YMCA connections, and Ys are a great partner in a lot of the communities throughout the region. So can't wait to talk.
Great. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say Don's a former board member at the Brainerd Y, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. Former chair.
There you go. All right. If there's no other questions for these gentlemen, we'll let them go. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, and Dan's going to give us kind of an update on the American Rescue Plan Act.
Yeah, last month we talked that the county was going to get about $19 million, so I just wanted to update you on what we know now. Chrissy, can you bring up that PowerPoint? So it's called the American Rescue Plan Act. Last year's funding was called CARES. This year it's ARPA. Very similar, but ARPA has a few more uses, and I'm going to go through that real quick here. It was signed into law back in early March, and they stated at that time that the funds would be received within 60 days. So if we take that, it'd probably be the end of April, early May before those funds arrive. And you can see Sherburne County is going to get about $19 million, and that's just the county. Each city within Sherburne County is also going to get allotted some funds, and the townships have some match in there too as well. I'm not sure if they're going to get funds from the state or the feds, but they will also get some level of funding. And you can see eligible costs are from March 3rd, 2021 through December of 2024. So we do have 3+ years to utilize those fundings, and I'll talk about some of the uses that the board has in mind. And then we are seeking additional guidance on what eligible uses are, and that is expected to be released April 26th. About a week and a half, we should know a lot more about what we can use these funds for. But as we talk about the EDA, some of the potential uses are another round of business relief. We gave away almost $6 million with CARES last year, and I still get multiple calls per week, hey, are there any funds available? So there still are businesses that are struggling out there. I don't think it's as bad as it was a year ago, but depending on the industry you're in, there still is some losses occurring for those type of businesses. It does sound like county road, sewer, and water infrastructure projects will be allowed, and I think that's what a lot of the cities will be utilizing the funds for. We hope to have conversations with them upcoming. But one of the main things the county really wants to work on is broadband. And the first step in that is last week the board approved a countywide fiber survey, so we're working with Finley Engineering to develop that, and we'll obviously run that by Laura before we release it. But we really want to know what areas their gaps are. Where is there a lack of competition causing high prices? And what can we do to fix those areas to expand broadband throughout the area? We already have started working with area providers. Laura and I have had many, many conversations. We had Midcode at our board meeting, and we just signed an agreement with them to fill some of our conduit. And that's why I actually invited our public works director here, Andrew, to talk about our conduit project. We do have a couple of road projects this year on County Road 20 and 2 where additional conduit will be installed. And I'm just going to turn it over to Andrew to talk about what we've done in the past and where we're at today.
Sure. Thanks, Dan. I'll keep it brief. Good to meet everybody in person, online. My name again is Andrew Witter, Public Works Director for Sherburne County. One of the initiatives that we've been taking at the county and the Public Works Department is kind of a dig once mentality. taking a look at our road projects and being able to put that conduit in the ground as we're out there rooting around with our road reconstruction and road rehabilitation projects. So one of the things we're doing now is taking a deep look into kind of the underserved and the unserved areas as we know it, and how that correlates with our 5-year CIP, our 5-year improvement plan, and strategically placing some conduit in those road corridors and those road areas that are going to help serve our communities. As Dan mentioned, we're looking to expand that conduit network. We don't know exactly how much, but I'm guessing it's going to be fairly significant. I've thrown out a few numbers recently. We might be looking at a couple 100 miles of roadway that we're going to look at putting some conduit in on. Hoping that we can expand that availability of broadband to the rural reaches of our communities for in-home businesses, for use as kids go to school and go back to school, and for a variety of reasons. So we're looking forward to it. Again, we'll do some with our road projects, but we also anticipate there being a standalone conduit project that we'll be diving into probably in the next 4 to 6 months. So trying to stay ahead of the curve there and see if we can't get some stuff in the ground before things become in short supply. Any questions specifically about that? Otherwise, I'll turn it back to Dan.
Pass out the map.
I brought one for my reference. Okay. I do have copies of our 5-year CIP, which maybe I'll leave on the corner here if people want to grab one on their way out. You can kind of see our construction plans for the next 5 years, which obviously in the next 1 or 2 years, they're going to be a little more accurate. And then as you get to years like 3 through 5, sometimes they slide around a year or two here and there, depending on funding and other opportunities.
And that's online too, right, Andrew?
It is, yep.
And it's updated?
Yep.
Do you want to talk about your experience from a provider's perspective with the program?
I think what we see is it's about a 40% reduction in our labor and construction costs when we look at doing, fiber construction. In this area, it averages about $50,000 a mile, and an average drop to a customer is $5,000 per house. So it's not cheap to deploy, and I think that's the understanding. People need to realize that's why you're not seeing the nationwide providers putting it in, or that kind of thing. And our big, I go out and do a take rate before we even start a project. We're not like some of the other providers that just start throwing it in the ground. We do it for make sure we're going to make money off of it before we do it, because we could be, we cover the whole state. We have 13,000 miles of fiber, but I think, just people need to realize, working together with, Sherburne County, we would not have been able to do some of those grant projects or projects that we've done fiber to the home if we hadn't had that infrastructure to work with you guys, because it's just so expensive. And then the other thing too, I think, we're not ripping the road back up again. We're not doing, having to, redo everything. You guys already had it open. It just makes so much sense to put that trench in the ground. So I see the value, and, I think we're seeing that now throughout other counties. So I think, Andrew and you guys, when you started doing that, I think people thought, why are we doing this? And some of the counties didn't agree with putting it in their budgets, and now I'm seeing it more. So I think that's a great, kudos to you guys that you are on the forefront on thinking that part, because this rural, to put the rural broadband up in these areas for the fiber, it's just so expensive to do. And our payback, we don't even break even sometimes on some of it, till year 3. So a 5-year contract, it's a long time to ask a homeowner to do. But I think that's why, it's nice that you guys are trying to help work with providers so that we can, try to get out there to as many places we can. And, with doing these County Road 20 or somewhere rural like that, it's hard to justify us to put it in. But if we can save 40% right off the top of the project, that's a huge, huge amount. A lot less ask of the homeowner and on us too.
And we were able to utilize CARES funds for a project for about 200 homeowners in Beckton and Clear Lake Township. So we anticipate expanding that with this program.
We actually had 100% participation in a few of the developments. And honestly, they did pay $250 a piece. But that's, you know, considering what we would have had to do if we hadn't, you know, saved, you know, 300,000 off that project. That's, or 400,000, that's a huge amount. So take that divided by 200, you know, that would have been on the homeowner, or somebody would have had to find the money, so.
And it is large enough conduit where we can have multiple providers in there. We just signed an agreement with Midcode to actually go in the same, some of the same conduit that RVIG is in. So we do leave it open for any provider that's willing to work. Just quick next steps is we're going to review those guidelines that come in a week and a half. We'll probably have a lot more information for you 30 days from now, and we'll have more discussions at the board level. Like I said, we're going to talk to local providers, nonprofits, and businesses to determine where the needs are. And then we're going to meet with the cities and townships. And I know Princeton's on the line. We just met with them yesterday, but it is our plan to continue to meet with all the cities and townships to see how they're utilizing their funds. So A, can we partner? And B, that we're not duplicating efforts on any projects. So more to come, but I did want to give you guys a quick update of where the county is at with those funds.
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, getting back to what Laura's comments were on broadband too, and the efforts that the county is doing in regards to partnering with these different providers. And my concern has always been, and I think Laura can attest to the fact that when there's money available in these kinds of fundings, you get a lot of pop-ups that come out to provide the service or put it in, and they might not be there for the long run. Like Laura indicates, there needs to be a return on investment down the road to keep it profitable. So that's always been my concern, to make sure we're dealing with providers that we know have good history and are going to be there to follow through and keep up with the improvements and such. So, and I would assume, Laura, you would concur with that. I think you see it happening.
Yep. I mean, like I said, that's when my husband and I did it, you know, that's why we saw the value of partnering with a larger company, and we just saw all the need in projects and knew that it was probably going to be a little too overwhelming, you know, for us, and we wanted to see that growth potential, you know, be on a larger scale.
So that's where I always try to make sure we're going to deal with long-standing companies, such as, like Laura mentions, RVIG is one, that we know are going to be around for the duration, and just not pop up and be gone maybe when it isn't going to be profitable for them anymore when the grants are done.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Any other questions, comments for Dan or Andrew from anyone? Any questions online? All right, any more general questions at all before we wrap this up?
I just want to give a quick update on the revolving loan fund. All payments are current. We don't have anything in default. We have 5 active ones. The 6 will be closing on the one we approved last month, but so far we haven't any defaults on those loans, so it's been going very well.
Good. Thanks for that, Dan. All right, our next meeting is May 20th, right back here at the same place. And if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.